Now, we've seen that man there, Dr. Drew Pinsky, help countless people struggling with addictions of all types for many years on television. And for 6 years, we watched him alongside celebrity patients fighting for their lives as they battled addiction problems. Now, though, he's about to embark on a new journey, and we're glad to welcome him here into our Hollywood studio. Thanks very much for joining us, Dr. Drew.
Thanks, Don. I appreciate
it. Now, you're neighbours, because you're actually down the road there with your HLN award-winning program.
We are neighbours.
We
and
are.
You've been very kindly blessing our show for many months, and we appreciate your participation.
I have, and thank you for returning the favour. Now, there are no famous patients in this series of Dr. Drew's Rehab.
Correct.
Why the change?
It's something I always wanted to, the original notion I had when they approached me about doing celebrity rehab was, well, great idea, why don't we put regular people in with celebrities to make the point that we treat everybody the same.
Yeah.
That just because somebody's a celebrity doesn't mean they get a different kind of mental health issue or we treat them differently. Well, that didn't end up what happened, but now finally I'm getting the chance to show what it is Bob and Shelley and I do normally, which is treat people like you and I, just regular people. And it turned out to be a very intense experience. We did it about 6 months ago, and we are still struggling with the patients to this day. They're all sober, 6 of them are in sober living, and it's a group that need a lot of treatment. And before you interrupt me, let me just say something. I keep telling VH1, I wish they would take a bow. They've gone as to the mat on behalf of these patients repeatedly in terms of funding their ongoing care. No one ever sees that part. You know, we treat them for months after their treatment, and VH1 very kindly has supported that. Whenever I asked for more treatment, they provided the resources.
But you and I have talked about that previously. The issue of aftercare with reality television shows just simply isn't there.
It doesn't exist, but it does exist for rehab patients, and it's necessary. I mean, the one point I always make on those shows is this is just the beginning, guys. This is where you get started. The process takes a year or so to really get a recovery underway. And because these regular people are more addicted, more severe addicts than the celebrities, I mean, this is really a tough group. They need more treatment, VH1 obliged.
Now, some parts of the show are very disturbing to watch, and you can actually see some of the drug use which led to these real-life people being introduced to rehab to fight for their life. Let's take a look at some of this video.
Okay.
And we don't have it, so there we go.
Okay.
So I'll pick that back up. How confronting was it, Dr. Drew? And how confronting sorry, let's pick that up. Why is it important to show confronting scenes like that?
Well, I mean, I think to me it's matter of fact. That's their condition.
Yeah.
These are drug addicts. They do drugs. You need to look at what this condition is, and people need to be hit between the eyes about this disease because it is in our country one of the diseases of our time. I mean, it is a very serious problem. And with all the pills, I mean, people go, heroin's still out there? Yeah, guess how people get on heroin? They start on pills. They run out of money. Heroin's the cheaper, more potent alternative. That's where heroin's coming from today.
Now, there has been criticism in the past about the show. For example, Rodney King drowned and died, but there were toxicology reports which showed that he had both drugs and alcohol in his system. And recently we saw the Real World star Joey Kovar was found dead. I mean, what do you say to critics of the program?
Well, all I can say is that you got to understand if somebody has severe enough addiction they need to see me, their prognosis is bad. They have a life-threatening condition. I'm like an oncologist. If we were doing a show on cancer, severe life-threatening cancer, and we did everything we could and people died, people would go, oh, it's cancer. Because it's addiction, people somehow go, well, you should have been able to cure that, or they should have been able to stop. No, the reality is that bad addiction has a worse prognosis than the majority of cancers.
Yeah.
People don't get that. And so my patients die. That's the way it goes, in spite of everything we do. If they would stay with us and do the same work every day and stay with us and never leave, they will get sober and stay sober.
So in a lot of ways, it's not surprising, sadly, that some people don't make it through to the other end.
If they don't continue to do the daily work, their life is in jeopardy. That's
so
simple.
How do you do it? Like, how do you see these patients that you've treated in front of a national audience die and then continue to fight? The good fight.
You know, it's the ones that inspire you. I mean, I have people I've given up on. These people that unfortunately succumb to their disease are people that I'm hopeful about. They're people that I'm convinced are going to die. I wash my hands. I'm sorry you're going to die. There's nothing I can do about it. And those same patients will come up to me 3 years later and shake my hand and go, you know, I didn't want to hear what you had to say back then, but it got through to me, and I'm now in my PhD program. I mean, there are miracles and there are surprises every day in addiction, and that's what keeps me going.
Who are some of those patients that are living testament to the program.
Well, I mean, Tom Sizemore is sober. That to me is a miracle. I mean, the people that I'm talking about, the regular people that I treat day in, day out, who come up to me all the time and say, I'm sober because of something you did years ago. And there's a lot of them are not with us anymore. I can't get that across to people that this disease kills.
All right, so what should we expect from the new show?
A group that is very severe in their addiction. People like anybody else out there, a guy from South Boston, a kid from Florida, 20-year-old, 25-year-olds, moms, a 30-year-old accountant with advanced addiction, whose lives are on the line. And this group gets aggressive too, a lot of aggression and sort of violence in this group. And unfortunately, usually what that does, let's say fortunately, is it motivates people to spin out of treatment, and go use. Fortunately, in spite of these really tough moments and people bolting treatment, they came back, they stayed in, and they're sober
How
now.
proud of you are of this group?
I'm very proud of this group, but yeah, I'm not ready to let go of them. We're still working with them on a daily basis. They have treacherous disease, and they could die too, any one of them.
All right. Well, the new series, Rehab with Dr. Drew, debuts September 16 on VH1. It's been a pleasure to have you here, Dr. Drew, as always. Thanks very much for coming in. And we'll stay with us because we've got plenty more on the other side of this break. All right. Block 2. Keep rolling.
Copy.
I can't believe you read that tiny.
I can't either. I've got my contact lenses in. I can barely see it. No worries.
Yeah, this group, they are so sick.
Really?
So ill. Oh my God. And we're having crises right now. And here's the crazy conundrum. So we're going to the mat for these people. Now they're drug addicts. Now they're starting to manipulate us. Well, I need more. I need this. I need that. It's like, fucking do your work. Do your work in recovery.
So all of them are still doing the work, though?
6 of them are actively with us. 2 are supposedly sober, but not in direct care right now.
Right.
But they're all here. They're all here in the vicinity.
Oh, okay. Treacherous place for them to be.
It's also where a lot of recovery goes on, too.
Yeah. All right, we ready? Welcome back to the Daily Buzz. Well, no one has seen celebrity troubles firsthand more than Dr. Drew Pinsky, so we're thrilled to welcome the doctor here to our Hollywood studios to discuss celebrities in crisis. Dr. Drew, thanks very much for accepting the invitation to come on board. Now, you've actually written an article previously for the website which talks about the way in which stars create this alibi to deal with their problems. Right. It is almost the go-to alibi to say that they are exhausted when they check into treatment. What is it about this spin that gets you agitated?
What gets me agitated is that it's a lie. It's the idea that somebody who's 28 years old needs hospitalization because they're fatigued or tired and dehydrated. I mean, 28-year-olds play professional football. Yeah. They get fatigued and dehydrated and they go out on the field and play football. Yeah. They don't need an IV. That's code for drug addiction.
It's nothing more than spin, really.
It's nonsensical to a physician, and that kind of bothers me. I mean, they're entitled to their private care, and they should just say, I'm hospitalized under doctor's care. That's it. It's none of your business. Fine. But I'm dehydrated, and I'm exhausted, and I'm 30 years old. That's insulting.
Do you think it would send a stronger message from these celebrities if they were perhaps transparent about?
Dylan, I think so. I have mixed feelings about it. I mean, on one hand, they are entitled to their confidential health care. They are, but celebrities are public figures. I've always thought they were opportunities to learn something. And if they would just say, hey, I'm struggling with something, please give me some time, and when I'm through this, I'll maybe share more with you about what this was like, they could really help a lot of people. Yeah. They really could. I mean, they are a figure that young people particularly look to, and if they're only seen as glamorous, and yet what's on the other side of that shiny star is something that really is quite leaden, I think young people should know that.
Now, we have a couple of case studies that I wanted to get your insight on. Let's start with Leanne Rimes, who's currently seeking treatment for what her rep says is emotional issues, possibly anxiety. Now, what we know is that she was cyberbullied for many months before she sought treatment. Do you think that that is indeed a reason that could catapult someone to treatment?
Well, let me say, as someone who has a large Twitter following, I could see where that could send somebody to practically jump off a building. And by the way, just as an aside, we live in a time when people are worried about young males learning violence with video games. People are violently acting out on real people in Twitter and social media without any concern and feeling entitled to doing so. That is a very serious concern in my mind. Could this have contributed? Yeah, it could have contributed. I'm not seeing people in the psychiatric hospital, though, as a direct relation to cyberbullying. It certainly could destabilize somebody who may be otherwise fragile. I'm troubled by the fact that her original sort of report was she went into rehab. I mean, rehab implies drug and alcohol addiction.
Well,
not emotional problems. Great. I hadn't heard that before.
What I will say is that I've spoken to people very close to Leanne in the last couple of days, and I asked that question of them. I said, the notion of rehab, and they're like, she's not in rehab.
Good.
She's in treatment.
Good for her.
For her emotional issues.
Good for her. That is a full standing applause.
She says that she wants to get tools to help her cope with emotional issues.
Yeah.
What do you go and learn? What do you learn in treatment?
Well, listen, it depends. In psychiatric hospitals, insurance is determined, believe it or not, who can and can't go in and for how long they can stay in psychiatric hospitals. And the predominant issue is, are you going to hurt yourself or you have trouble functioning? You're in there for medication management. That's usually what you're in the hospital for. While you are there, there will be group therapy, there will be individual therapies, but that stuff takes many, many, many months to really do its full effect.
Sure.
Now, there are residential facilities where people can get intensive versions of that for weeks or months at a time. Again, hats off to her if she's taking the time out to do that kind of thing. Very few people ever do that.
Now, a lot of this stems from the fact that she met her now husband, Eddie Cibrian, while Eddie was married to the Real Housewife of Beverly Hills star Brandi Glanville. Now, that's where she says a lot of these cyber attacks began. What effect does that emotional Hollywood turmoil contribute to people's status these days?
Well, I'm not trying to understand your question, but drama and chaos are
drama
bad.
and chaos in Hollywood, particularly in front of the spotlight.
People need a simple life. That's where emotional health comes from, is simple lives. Now, if you can tolerate it being scrutinized in the public, fantastic. But if you're fragile, it's going to be difficult. I don't know if people realize how brutal social media is. I mean, I have deep sympathy for what Leanne Ryan is going through. I'm not saying it's precipitating a psychiatric crisis, but I'm saying we got to think about this. People's well-being is being affected by access. People who feel entitled to brutally attack other people. Words matter. Words hurt. They do.
Social media and fame could quite well be a volatile cocktail. Now, onto a global superstar involved in a worldwide scandal, Prince Harry. Now, as we know, the Playboy Prince has found himself for years in trouble. And of course, the most recent incident was in Las Vegas when he was photographed playing naked billiards. What kind of a person gets involved, not the least being someone involved in the British monarchy, in a scandal like this? A young prince?
A young person, a young male who's maybe taken a few too many, brew or beer that night. Listen, it's somebody who blinked, bottom line. You know what I mean? It's somebody who didn't pay attention.
But, I mean, there's a pattern of this behaviour. He dressed up as a Nazi for a Halloween costume.
Yes.
He said something about a colleague of his who was in the army, calling him a Paki. He gets photographed in a Las Vegas hotel room.
Okay. But see, as a non-Brit, I look at that and go, yeah, 20-something-year-old male, that's how they behave. Just because he's a monarch, you Brits expect him to have a completely different standard of behavior?
Possibly.
I don't think you're going to get that. I mean, the evidence suggests you're not. And should that necessarily condemn him? I mean, you guys went after Charles for behavior that was a little dicey. I prefer Harry's to Charles.
All right.
Call me crazy.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I do, okay. But I do think that there is... It says a lot about the person that continually finds himself in that scenario.
Maybe he's in trouble. Maybe this is the beginning of real serious trouble. I don't know. I mean, I certainly wouldn't approach this in a punitive way if I were the Queen Mom. Or I would say, do we have a problem here? Do you need to talk to somebody? Or can I count on you to not embarrass the family anymore?
Yeah, I think it's about time. High time for that. Lindsay Lohan has been successfully shooting her role as Hollywood icon Elizabeth Taylor in the forthcoming Lifetime movie. Now, I know you've followed her ups and downs, as we all have here in Hollywood. It certainly, though, seems of late that she may have got her life back on track, but then again, we hear reports that she's in trouble. Yeah. I mean, is she just a lost cause?
No, she's not a lost cause, but my fear is that she's going to have a catastrophe in one of her moments before she ever gets sustained sobriety. There was a period, if you remember about a year and a half ago, when she was spending a lot of time in her house, she was sort of locked up, and the courts, she was beginning to take the court recommendations seriously. She was actually sober then. The language she was using was good, and I remember she was calmer, and so she has it in her. I don't see that right now.
What does she need to do to get back on the right track, if she's not on the right track?
She you know what, she actually knows what she needs to do, because I saw her doing it. I know she knows. She doesn't want it.
She doesn't want to.
She doesn't want it right now.
And what effect does the the drama at home with mum and dad have an effect on
that,
that.
of course. I mean, that's, you know, listen, if somebody has bad addiction, it's a twofold. It's the genetics of addiction with the trauma of a chaotic or disruptive or problematic family or childhood. She got it. You know, she's had some tough knocks, and that's what makes sobriety so uncomfortable, having to deal with all those the miserable emotions. And right now, the alchemy isn't coming down on the side of sobriety for her yet. And my fear is, again, watching her at a distance, that something awful has to happen until she's motivated to really get that sobriety.
But that often is the case with a lot of people.
Often the case, and I think with Lindsay, I just have this like image she's going to lose a limb or something awful, and then we'll get a sober person if she survives.
All right, Dr. Drew, thank you very much for joining us here in the studio, and of course, Dr. Drew's new VH1 series debuts September 16. It's called Rehab with Dr. Drew. Always good to have the Dr. Drew
Dylan,
here in the studio. To read more of Dr. Drew's opinion piece on the website, head on over to celebbuzz.com. That's it for the Daily Buzz today. Take care. Bye for now.